in the vast darkness between stars, where ancient light carried whispers of civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth's sun ignited. Humanity was about to remind the galaxy why apex predators hide their claws until the moment of the hunt. The cosmic dance of power and deception had played out across millennia, species rising to prominence only to discover that assumptions about strength could prove catastrophically wrong. Today, in the cold vacuum above human colonies that seemed defenseless as newborn prey, that eternal lesson would be written in fire and stealth across the star-drunk void. The Kinniks had studied. They had calculated. They had prepared for what they believed would be a simple demonstration of superior firepower against a species whose defensive capabilities appeared laughably primitive. What they had not prepared for was the possibility that humans might be the galaxy's most patient liars. Algar stood in Thornton Command's tactical center, his weathered granite features carved into concentration, as displays showed 27 alien warships approaching human settlements with the lazy confidence of predators who believed they faced helpless prey. The years had etched deep lines around pale gray eyes that seemed to catalog every tactical detail in their field of vision. His dark brown hair cropped military short with threads of silver at the temples, catching the harsh artificial lighting of the underground facility. His lean, athletic frame remained motionless as he processed data streams that would have overwhelmed lesser minds. The faint scar running along his left jawline barely visible unless the light struck it precisely. For months, the Kinniks had studied human defensive capabilities during alliance negotiations, cataloging orbital platforms, noting patrol destroyer specifications, documenting every conventional response protocol humanity had openly shared. Their intelligence operatives had been thorough, meticulous, professional. They had also been completely, catastrophically wrong. The first plasma bolt tore through the agricultural dome like a surgical blade, through silk, brilliant energy carving destruction across what had been peaceful farmland moments before. Algar's calloused hands, weathered by decades of flight controls and tactical planning, remained steady on the holographic display as civilian evacuation streams painted desperate vectors across his screen. 27 vessels moved through space with predatory grace, their sleek forms cutting through the void with the casual arrogance of hunters who had no idea they were about to become prey. Priority evacuation, all civilian sectors. Algar's gravelly voice cut through the command center's controlled chaos, each word measured for maximum impact with minimum transmission time. Route transports through asteroid fields maintain minimum sensor profiles. The targeting officer's voice carried stress despite her professional training. Sir, second wave approaching the outer settlements. Estimated contact in 18 minutes. Algar's fingers traced the tactical display with economical precision, watching enemy vessels spread through the system like infection through living tissue. The Kinniks had studied human defensive capabilities for months during supposed alliance negotiations, their operatives documenting Earth's orbital platforms, cataloging patrol destroyer specifications, analyzing every conventional response protocol humanity had shared with their supposed allies. What they hadn't studied were the capabilities humanity had never mentioned. Confirm all civilian assets clear of engagement zones, Algar said, his voice carrying the weight of decisions that would reshape two species' understanding of each other. Signal Earth Command. Authorization Code Blackwing 7. Full atmospheric deployment. Deep beneath the surface installations that the Kinniks had dismissed as primitive, systems that had remained dormant for decades began their awakening sequence. Humanity's most carefully guarded secret was about to remind the galaxy that appearances could be lethally deceiving. Rhex'ara pressed her four-fingered hands against the tactical display in the Joint Intelligence Center aboard the neutral station Kaltara's point, her pale blue skin deepening to rich indigo around her elongated temple markings, as concentration sharpened her enhanced sensory organs to maximum acuity. The Kinnick's raids had caught everyone by surprise, including her. And as the Narala Confederation's primary combat intelligence operative, she prided herself on predicting aggressive actions before they materialized into bloodshed. Her gracefully elongated physiology embodied the elegant deadliness of a species evolved for perfect environmental awareness. Large luminous eyes the color of Arctic ice, analyzing data streams with articulated precision that made human cognitive processing appear clumsy by comparison. The way she moved through the command space demonstrated unconscious mastery of three-dimensional navigation, every gesture carrying tactical meaning, every shift in posture communicating assessment, or concern with clarity that transcended species barriers. The human response puzzled her more than the attack itself. Their evacuation patterns demonstrated efficiency that bordered on prescience, as if they had planned for exactly this scenario. But their defensive deployments made no tactical sense, according to every assessment the Confederation had made regarding Earth's military capabilities. Where were the patrol destroyers, the orbital weapon platforms that intelligence reports had cataloged in exhaustive detail? The humans were responding as if they wanted the Kinnick's to believe Earth was defenseless. Admiral Zenitra's voice crackled through communication channels, tinged with satisfaction that spoke of assumptions proven correct and victory assured before the first shot had been fired. Analysis confirms human military capabilities remain limited to close-orbit defense systems. The raids proceed as calculated. Kinnick's forces report no atmospheric resistance detected. Rhex'ara frowned at her readings, subtle luminescence flickering beneath her skin as tactical assessment overrode diplomatic protocols. The human colonial worlds showed massive energy signatures, but they registered as industrial rather than military. Agricultural processing facilities, mining operations, civilian infrastructure. Nothing that should threaten attack craft designed to punch through capital ship armor with contemptuous ease. Yet something about the energy distribution patterns suggested deliberate misdirection, as if the humans were broadcasting exactly what they wanted observers to see, while concealing something far more significant beneath the facade of technological limitation. She opened communication channels to Earth's command frequency, her melodic voice carrying undertones that suggested vocal cords evolved from multiple frequency ranges. This is Operative Rhex'ara of Narala Intelligence to Thornton Command. Request tactical assessment of current defensive positions. The response came through static-laden transmission, a human male whose gravelly voice carried undertones of deadly patience, earned through decades of classified operations. This is Commander Algar. Current defensive status is evolving. Recommend your people maintain safe distance from Kinnick's fleet positions. Something in his tone made her skin shift to deeper blue patterns around her elongated temples, enhanced sensory organs detecting emotional subtext that human vocal patterns couldn't quite conceal. Evolving how, Commander? Watch the sky, Operative. You're about to understand why we kept some things classified. The first stealth bomber materialized on Kinnick's sensors like a nightmare taking form from empty space, massive angular shape that seemed to bend light around its edges with supernatural grace. One moment, their tactical displays showed clear atmospheric approaches to human settlements. The next, contacts appeared that defied every principle of aerospace, engineering the galaxy had accepted as immutable law. Algar watched enemy fleet formations scatter in confusion, as his atmospheric assets revealed themselves like ancient spirits of war, emerging from realms between reality and death. 20 stealth platforms, their radar-absorbent capabilities rendering them invisible until they chose to be seen. Emerged from what the Kinniks had dismissed as primitive atmospheric defense layers, with the terrible majesty of apex predators that had chosen their moment to strike. Target acquisition confirmed, came the voice through secure channels. Enemy vessels breaking formation. They don't understand what they're seeing. They're about to, Algar replied, his weathered features carved into expression that suggested coiled strength rather than intimidation. A predator at rest who had never needed to display lethality unnecessarily. The first precision munitions fell like divine judgment through vacuum-guided warheads that tracked Kinnick's engine signatures with implacable certainty, born of technology decades ahead of anything the galaxy suspected humanity possessed. Explosions blossomed against alien hulls with terrible beauty of controlled violence, each impact calculated to disable rather than destroy. Demonstration of capability rather than simple destruction. The stealth platforms moved through space like ghosts given substance, their angular forms cutting through void with grace that spoke of engineering principles the Kinniks had never imagined possible. Radar signatures that appeared and disappeared at will, strike capabilities that reached far beyond anything atmospheric aircraft should have been able to achieve. Precision that turned warfare into surgical art form. Admiral Zenitra's voice exploded across all frequencies, satisfaction replaced by confusion that bordered on panic. What is the nature of these contacts? How are human atmospheric craft achieving orbital engagement parameters? Algar opened channels to the entire Kinnick's fleet, his gravelly voice carrying quiet authority of someone who had been holding lethal force in reserve for precisely this moment. Admiral, you're engaging stealth strike platforms that have been operational for decades. What you're seeing represents roughly 8% of Earth's atmospheric defense capabilities. I suggest immediate withdrawal to neutral space. The words hung in vacuum like pronouncement of doom, each syllable carefully chosen to communicate not threat, but simple statement of tactical reality. Humanity had been hiding in plain sight, concealing devastating defensive systems behind facade of technological limitation, while the galaxy assumed human military doctrine was built around desperation rather than strategic patience. Rhex'ara stared at her sensor displays, training warring with evidence her instruments provided, as human aircraft demonstrated capabilities that defied every tactical assessment the Confederation had made regarding Earth's military development. Their radar signatures were ghosts, present only when they chose to reveal themselves, strike capabilities reaching far beyond atmospheric limitations into realm of orbital supremacy. The Kinnick's fleet was in full retreat, their formation dissolved by precision strikes that came from aircraft they couldn't track, until weapons' impact painted destruction across their hulls. Admiral Zenitra's arrogance had shattered against reality of human technological deception, his certainty replaced by desperate flight toward neutral space. She needed to speak with the human commander directly, to understand implications that reached far beyond simple military demonstration. The political ramifications would cascade through alliance structures, forcing every species to reconsider assumptions about human capabilities and intentions. This is Rhex'ara requesting immediate priority transport to Earth Command. She transmitted to Kultara's point control. Official intelligence liaison protocols. The station commander's response carried reluctant approval tinged with concern. Cleared for immediate departure, operative. Safe journey. The shuttle ride to Thornton Command gave her time to process implications that reached far beyond military capability. Humans hadn't simply hidden advanced technology. They had constructed elaborate facade of technological limitation while maintaining devastating defensive systems in reserve. Every intelligence assessment every strategic calculation, every assumption about human military doctrine would need complete revision. More immediately, the human commander's voice had carried undertones that suggested personal stakes beyond professional duty. She found herself wondering what kind of person wielded such controlled lethality, while speaking with calm patience of someone discussing agricultural yields rather than orbital warfare. Algar stood before floor-to-ceiling transparency that formed one wall of Thornton Command's primary briefing chamber. Watching the last Kinnick's vessels disappear beyond sensor range, like defeated predators retreating to lick wounds they had never expected to receive. Earth hung below like blue-white jewel, deceptively peaceful from orbital perspective, that revealed nothing of the defensive systems hidden beneath atmospheric layers. The political firestorm would begin within hours, as Alliance representatives demanded explanations for capabilities Earth had deliberately concealed during technology-sharing negotiations. Some would call it betrayal of diplomatic trust. Others would recognize it as prudent defensive doctrine that had prevented escalation while maintaining deterrent capability. The soft hiss of chamber entrance made him turn with economical motion that suggested decades of military training. The Narila operative who entered moved with fluid grace of natural predator, her pale blue skin catching filtered starlight in patterns that spoke of evolution on world where camouflage meant survival. She was gracefully proportioned with enhanced sensory capabilities, elongated cranium tapering from high forehead to delicate chin in facial geometry that suggested both intellect and predatory beauty. Operative Rhex'ara, Algar said, recognizing her from intelligence briefings that had failed to capture intensity of her presence, or the way large luminous eyes seemed to analyze everything with Arctic clarity. I assume you have questions about today's demonstration. She stopped precise distance away, close enough for conversation, but maintaining professional spacing that acknowledged both diplomatic protocols and species differences. Her voice carried melodic undertones that suggested vocal evolution far more complex than human speech patterns. Commander Algar, I have approximately 700 questions, beginning with how your species managed to develop atmospheric stealth capabilities that surpass anything in Confederation databases. Algar gestured toward observation transparency, where Earth's Terminator line crept across continents below. His weathered features softening slightly as intelligence burning behind pale gray eyes focused on something that mattered beyond simple tactical considerations. We didn't develop them recently, operative. We've had aircraft capable of avoiding radar detection for over 60 years. The technology simply never came up during Alliance negotiations. Her skin shifted through subtle spectrum changes that reflected emotional states he was beginning to recognize. Indigo deepening around temple markings as enhanced sensory organs processed implications. You deliberately concealed military capabilities during diplomatic technology exchanges. We concealed specific applications, Algar corrected, his gravelly voice carrying patient explanation rather than defensive justification. Basic principles of radar-absorbent materials and angular surface design were included in our technical databases. We simply didn't mention we had weaponized atmospheric stealth decades before first contact. She moved closer to transparency with fluid grace that demonstrated unconscious mastery of three-dimensional navigation, her reflection ghosting against star field like ethereal presence caught between worlds. Why reveal them now? The Kinnick's raids were ultimately minor territorial probes. Algar studied her profile as she gazed at Earth below, noting way subtle luminescence flickered beneath skin during moments of intense concentration. Because someone needed to understand that human defensive doctrine isn't built around desperation or last resort responses. When we choose not to fight, It's policy, not weakness. Their eyes met in transparency's reflection, and something electric passed between them that had nothing to do with species differences, and everything to do with recognition of compatible predators who had found themselves on same side of conflict that could have destroyed everything they were building together. Rhex'ara felt shift between them like change in atmospheric pressure, subtle but unmistakable as gravity wells reshaping spacetime around massive objects. The human commander possessed qualities her species' evolutionary psychology found compelling: controlled strength, protective capability, strategic patience that spoke of apex predator mentality, refined through decades of command decisions. His revelation about human military deception demonstrated exactly the kind of tactical sophistication that earned respect among Narala military hierarchies. "Commander," she said, turning to face him directly with gesture that carried meaning beyond simple movement, "I need to understand scope of what you've shown me today." Political implications reach beyond simple military deterrence. Algar's expression grew thoughtful, weathered granite features reflecting intelligence that processed multiple variables simultaneously, while pale gray eyes cataloged details that others might miss. "How much do you need to know, operative, for your reports or for your own understanding?" The question carried implications that made her pulse quicken, four-fingered hands moving with articulated precision, as she processed emotional responses that had nothing to do with professional duty. For both, the Confederation needs to reassess Earth's strategic position within alliance structure. But personally, she paused, choosing words with care that suggested vocal evolution designed for complex communication. "I find myself curious about how your species approaches balance between deception and trust." He stepped closer with economical motion that suggested coiled strength rather than intimidation, close enough that her enhanced sensory organs could detect subtle chemical signatures that accompanied human emotional states. "That's conversation that might take a while, Rhex'ara. Might be better conducted somewhere less official than command briefing room." Her skin shifted through spectrum changes that reflected emotional states she was learning to control in professional settings, luminescence flickering beneath surface like aurora caught in living tissue. "Are you suggesting security breach, Commander?" Algar's expression carried warmth that reached beyond professional courtesy, faint scar along jawline becoming more visible as filtered starlight struck features that managed to be both stern and unexpectedly gentle. "I'm suggesting some conversations require privacy to develop properly. There's civilian observation deck on level 7. Less tactical displays, more comfortable seating. Better for extended discussions about policy implications." The observation deck existed in space between military necessity and human aesthetic sensibility, designed to remind occupants they remained connected to worlds rather than lost in void between them. Stars wheeled slowly beyond curved transparency, while Earth's blue radiance provided soft illumination for seating areas that accommodated multiple species' physiological requirements. Rhex'ara settled into chair designed for her species' elongated proportions, watching Algar's reflection in Starfield as he moved to refreshment alcove with unconscious grace of someone accustomed to performing complex tasks under pressure. His movements carried economical precision that spoke of decades spent learning to waste neither motion nor opportunity, each action calculated for maximum efficiency. The beverage he offered carried complex aromatic profile, carefully selected for Narala biochemistry. Attention to detail that spoke of preparation, beyond simple diplomatic courtesy. She accepted it with gratitude that extended beyond professional acknowledgement, her melodic voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested appreciation for consideration few humans would have bothered to provide. "So," Algar said, settling into chair beside hers with careful attention to species differences. How do we process what happened today? From intelligence perspective, your people need to understand Earth's defensive capabilities, extend beyond what we've shown in joint exercises. Rhex'ara tasted beverage while studying his profile against star field. Noting way silver threads caught starlight like metallic gleams that spoke of countless hours spent beneath artificial suns in underground facilities. The Confederation operates on assumption that Alliance members share technological capabilities openly. Today's revelation suggests humans maintain strategic reserves beyond stated parameters. Algar's weathered features grew serious, pale gray eyes reflecting depths that spoke of classified operations and decisions that had shaped interstellar relationships. Question becomes whether that represents betrayal of Alliance trust or simply prudent defensive doctrine. Would your people share every military application of their technology with recently contacted species? She considered question while her enhanced sensory organs processed subtle environmental changes that human awareness might miss. Large, luminous eyes analyzing not just words, but emotional subtext carried in vocal patterns and body language. Honestly, no. But we also wouldn't participate in joint military planning without acknowledging capability limitations. Which brings us to heart of problem, Algar said, his gravelly voice carrying patient explanation of strategic doctrine that few outside human command structure would understand. Because what you saw today wasn't capability limitation. It was strategic misdirection. We let potential aggressors believe Earth's defenses were limited to prevent arms escalation that destroys diplomatic possibilities. Logic made sense from strategic perspective, but implications troubled her in ways that went beyond professional concern. How do we rebuild trust after this kind of revelation? Kinniks will report to their faction leadership. Other species will demand explanations. Some Alliance members will question whether humans can be trusted in future negotiations. Algar turned to face her directly, weathered granite features carrying intensity that made her awareness of him shift from professional to personal, coiled strength, suggesting predator at rest, who was comfortable in his own lethality, without needing to display it unnecessarily. That depends on whether someone is willing to help explain human strategic thinking to Confederation Council. Someone who understands both military necessity and diplomatic complexity. Request hung between them like bridge she could choose to cross or burn. Decision that would reshape her career trajectory and possibly her species' relationship with humanity. Beyond professional implications, she recognized opportunity to explore growing attraction that made her hyper-aware of his proximity. The way his standard-issue uniform fit frame that suggested decades of military conditioning. You're asking me to advocate for human strategic deception to my own government, she said, skin shifting through spectrum changes that reflected emotional complexity no amount of training could completely suppress. That requires level of trust that extends beyond normal diplomatic channels. Algar's voice carried undertones of vulnerability beneath professional composure, gravelly tone softening as pale gray eyes reflected intelligence that had cataloged too many classified operations. I'm asking someone I respect to help prevent breakdown of Alliance relationships over defensive measure that saved lives today. Kinniks retreated because they understood they had underestimated human capabilities. No one died because of few ships with hurt pride. She leaned forward with fluid grace that demonstrated unconscious mastery of body language transcending species barriers, drawn by passion beneath his controlled exterior that spoke of personal stakes beyond professional duty. And personally, Algar, what are you asking from me personally? His expression carried warmth that reached places in her consciousness she had kept carefully protected during professional interactions, faint scar along jawline catching starlight as features softened with unexpected gentleness. Personally, I'm hoping you'll stay long enough for us to explore whether this attraction I'm feeling is mutual. Whether two people from different species can build something meaningful when their professional duties align. Honesty in his voice made her decision simple, skin shifting through spectrum changes that indicated acceptance and anticipation, while subtle luminescence flickered beneath surface like living aurora. I think I can arrange extended liaison duty, Commander. Confederation will need detailed reports about human defensive capabilities. Very detailed reports. Algar's weathered features reflected relief and promise in equal measure, gravelly laughter carrying warmth that reached beyond diplomatic courtesy. I can provide extensive briefings, operative, very extensive briefings. 3 days later, Rhex'ara stood beside Algar in Thornton Command's primary briefing chamber as they addressed joint session of Alliance representatives via holographic link. Her gracefully elongated physiology complementing his lean athletic frame in visual composition that spoke of partnership transcending species barriers. Political firestorm had materialized exactly as predicted, with demands for explanation from 12 different species governments and threats of alliance, withdrawal from 3 others. Algar's presentation had been masterful technical specifications that revealed capability without compromising operational security, strategic doctrine that emphasized defensive rather than aggressive applications, historical context that demonstrated Earth's consistent preference for diplomatic solutions over military escalation. But most persuasive argument came from her analysis of kinetics, tactical assessments, and recommendation that human defensive reserves represented stabilizing rather than destabilizing forces within alliance structure. Admiral Zenitra's image glowered from primary display. Earlier arrogance replaced by grudging respect, tinged with wounded pride, that spoke of assumptions shattered against reality of human technological superiority. Kinetics acknowledged that human defensive capabilities exceed previous assessments. However, political implications of concealed military assets require examination by alliance oversight committees. That examination will be welcome, Algar replied, gravelly voice carrying diplomatic formality over underlying steel that spoke of defensive capabilities still held in reserve. Earth's strategic doctrine emphasizes transparency in defensive applications while maintaining operational security for specific tactical implementations. We're prepared to provide detailed briefings to authorized alliance representatives. Rhex'ara stepped forward with fluid grace that commanded attention across species barriers. Her official status as Narila intelligence liaison lending weight to words that carried melodic undertones designed for complex communication. Confederation recommends immediate establishment of enhanced information sharing protocols between all alliance members. Today's events demonstrate importance of understanding defensive capabilities to prevent misunderstandings that could escalate into armed conflict. Session continued for another hour, technical questions and political posturing, gradually giving way to accommodation that would preserve alliance structure while acknowledging new parameters for human involvement. When connections finally closed, leaving them alone in briefing chamber, Rhex'ara felt satisfaction of crisis successfully navigated through combination of military demonstration and diplomatic skill. Algar moved to stand beside her at observation transparency, his presence carrying warmth that had become familiar over past 3 days as professional partnership had evolved into something deeper and more personal. Think it worked? He asked, weathered granite features reflecting cautious optimism. She leaned into his proximity with unconscious grace that spoke of growing comfort with physical contact that transcended species barriers. allowing herself to enjoy touch that represented both personal and professional trust. I think we prevented political disaster while establishing precedent for enhanced cooperation. Confederation is officially impressed with human strategic thinking. And unofficially, Algar asked, his arms settling around her shoulders with careful attention to physiological differences that required delicate navigation. Unofficially, she said, skin shifting through spectrum changes that indicated contentment and anticipation, while voice carried harmonic undertones that suggested vocal evolution designed for emotional complexity. I think I'm going to enjoy these extended briefings very much. Through transparency, Earth turned slowly in star field, no longer looking deceptively peaceful, but instead radiating quiet confidence of world that understood when to reveal strength, and when to let others underestimate what ghosts might emerge from empty sky. Blue-white radiance painted possibilities across observation deck, while two hearts found harmony despite evolutionary paths that had diverged millions of years before their species had learned to reach for stars. Kinniks had learned that human atmospheric defenses were more than they appeared. Alliance had learned that Earth's strategic doctrine operated on longer timelines and deeper patience than anyone had suspected. Two intelligence operatives had learned that some revelations opened possibilities rather than closing them, creating spaces where trust could grow between predators who had chosen to hunt together rather than against each other. Algar's gravelly voice carried quiet satisfaction as he watched last of diplomatic traffic clear Earth's orbital approaches. Pale gray eyes reflecting starlight that spoke of peaceful resolution, achieved through demonstration of overwhelming force, held in careful restraint. Next time someone decides to test human defensive capabilities, they'll know what they're walking into. Rhex'ara smiled with expression that transcended species barriers, skin shifting through spectrum changes that indicated both amusement and affection, while luminescence flickered beneath surface like aurora caught in living tissue. Next time, they might think twice about assuming humans keep all their ghosts on ground. Stars wheeled slowly beyond transparency, while Earth's blue radiance painted tomorrow across space between worlds. Two hearts finding harmony, while their civilizations learned new ways to trust each other in vast darkness between light. The ghosts humanity had summoned from empty sky had changed everything, proving that sometimes the most dangerous predators were those patient enough to let others think they were prey.